If you think you've seen the darkest side of humanity, think again. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and brace yourself, because what happened inside Pelican Bay wasn't just a riot, it was a reckoning. The morning of August 12, 1993 began like any other inside Pelican Bay State Prison, the supermax fortress built to contain California's most violent offenders. Concrete walls stretched for miles, surrounded by razor wire that glittered under a cold gray sky. Inside, silence ruled, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional echo of boots against metal grates. At 7:23 a.m., that silence shattered. A scream ripped through C Yard, the high-security exercise yard reserved for inmates serving indefinite SHU terms, solitary confinement. Guards scrambled to respond, but by the time they reached the gates, chaos had already erupted. Fists, makeshift blades, and blood hit the ground within seconds. What began as a fight between two rival gang members spiraled into a full-blown riot that would leave the prison scarred forever. From the observation tower, Officer Daniel Cortez, a 10-year veteran of the California Department of Corrections, shouted into his radio, "We've got multiple down in C Yard, requesting immediate backup." Inside the control room, alarms screamed. The red lights above every door began flashing, locking entire units in place. But something was wrong. The gates wouldn't close. Someone had jammed the central control system, overriding the lockdown. It wasn't random. This riot was planned. Down below, the air thickened with dust and fear. Inmates wielded sharpened metal rods, broken mop handles, anything they could get their hands on. The guards tried to form a perimeter, firing warning shots into the air, but no one stopped fighting. By 8:05 a.m., the yard looked like a war zone. Dozens of bodies littered the concrete, blood pooled near the drainage grates. The loudspeakers crackled with desperate orders, but the chaos was too widespread. Meanwhile, in a small observation booth above the yard, Lieutenant Harper reviewed the surveillance feed. One camera went dark, then another, then another. Each blackout followed a pattern. "It's deliberate," she whispered. "Someone inside the system is pulling the plug." At 8:17 a.m., backup arrived from Crescent City. The tactical unit stormed the facility, using tear gas and rubber rounds to regain control. Within minutes, the riot began to die down, but not before 23 inmates and 2 officers were critically injured. When the smoke cleared, Harper and Cortez walked the yard together, their boots splashing through puddles of water and blood. In the center of the chaos, one inmate stood still, silent, eyes fixed on the sky. His prison number read C45877, a man known among inmates as Ghost.
He didn't fight, he didn't run, he just watched. Later, when they checked his cell, they found something that didn't belong there. A folded map of the prison's electrical grid, drawn in precise military-style detail. Every camera, every door, every weak point marked in red. Lieutenant Harper stared at it, her heart pounding. "Who gave him this?" she asked. Officer Cortez looked up, pale. "That's not inmate handwriting." For a moment, the yard fell completely silent again. The riot, it seemed, wasn't just an act of rage, it was a message. And whoever sent it was still inside. The official report called it a riot sparked by gang tension, but Lieutenant Michelle Harper knew better. The precision, the timing, the way the cameras went dark one by one, it wasn't chaos, it was orchestration. Someone had choreographed the entire thing. 2 days after the bloodshed, Pelican Bay was locked down tight. No movement, no recreation, no contact. Every inmate was confined to their cell as investigators from Sacramento swarmed the facility. They called it a containment review. Harper called it a cover-up waiting to happen. In the control wing, Harper and Officer Daniel Cortez sat hunched over a bank of surveillance monitors. Half the footage from the riot was corrupted, the rest filled with static. Only one segment remained clear, camera C14, overlooking the western wall. It showed something no one had reported. A shadow moving along the control corridor minutes before the first fight began. Not an inmate, someone wearing correctional gear. Cortez rewound the tape. "Could be a guard," he muttered. "Except," Harper said quietly, "that corridor was sealed that morning. No officer was logged there." She paused the video. The shadow turned its head for a split second, just enough to catch a reflection of a badge clipped to the chest. The name was unreadable, but the number wasn't. H3297. Her stomach tightened. That number belonged to Officer Craig Delaney, one of the senior guards on shift. But Delaney hadn't shown up for work since the riot. He'd simply vanished. By the third day, investigators found his car abandoned near the Oregon border. Inside the glove compartment was his badge and a small piece of folded paper with a single line written in pencil. "The ghost watches from above." Harper didn't sleep that night. The phrase looped in her mind as she read through old incident reports. Ghost, the inmate from C Yard C45877, had been transferred to Pelican Bay only 6 months ago under a sealed order. No prior gang affiliations, no behavioral marks. But his real name, Elias Monroe, told another story. Before prison, Monroe had been a military systems technician, a specialist in electronic warfare and surveillance networks. He'd worked under contract with private defense firms until an internal theft case landed him behind bars. The stolen data was never recovered. Now Harper began to see the pattern. The blackout wasn't just sabotage, it was a test. And whoever Monroe once worked for wanted something buried deep inside Pelican Bay. As Harper traced the power logs for the day of the riot, she found something chilling, a remote access point. A digital handshake had been made with the prison's mainframe just before the system failed. The access didn't come from inside California, it came from a server in Nevada. She picked up the phone, dialing the internal line. "Cortez, it's Harper. The riot wasn't just a setup. Someone on the outside was in control. And Ghost, he's not working alone." Before she could finish, the lights flickered. Then the room went black. The monitors shut off. The hum of the generator stopped. In the darkness, she heard a faint click, metal against metal, the sound of a door unlocking itself. She reached for her flashlight, but it was too late. A voice came from behind her, calm, measured, almost polite. "Lieutenant Harper, you've been asking the wrong questions." The beam of her flashlight cut through the dark, but the corridor was empty. Then from the far end she saw it. A symbol scratched into the wall, a small crude drawing of an eye inside a circle, and beneath it 3 words written in blood-red marker. "The ghost lives here." Her pulse spiked. She ran to the control room door, but it was locked from the outside. Someone had sealed her in. And for the first time since the riot, Michelle Harper realized the real war inside Pelican Bay had just begun. If you've made it this far, you're one of the few who can handle the truth. Hit subscribe, because what happens next inside Pelican Bay will stay with you long after the video ends. The emergency lights flickered back to life, bathing the corridor in a red, pulsing glow. Lieutenant Michelle Harper stood frozen, her breath sharp in her throat. The symbol on the wall, the eye within the circle, seemed to stare back at her. She gripped her radio. "Control, this is Harper. I'm locked in. I need extraction, now." Only static answered. Somewhere deep in the prison, an alarm blared again. Not the riot alarm this time. This was different. A breach alert. Harper forced the door open with a crowbar she found near the panel. The hallway outside was empty, the air thick with the smell of burnt circuits. She followed the sound of the alarm toward the central command hub. When she reached it, Officer Daniel Cortez was already there, hunched over a computer terminal. His hands trembled as he typed override commands. "What the hell happened?" Harper demanded. Cortez turned, his face pale and sweating. "Someone's reprogrammed the system from the inside, Harper. The security feed's been rerouted to an external address. They're watching us, Harper."
She leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Where's the feed going?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Langley." Her heart stopped. Langley, Virginia, CIA servers. The words didn't make sense at first, until they did. Elias Ghost Monroe wasn't just a hacker or a rogue contractor. He'd been part of something larger,
a classified intelligence program that tested behavioral control algorithms on inmates. The riot, the system failure, the blackout, it wasn't a rebellion, it was an experiment. "Where's Monroe?" she asked. Cortez didn't answer. His hands shook harder. Harper noticed the blood on his sleeve, a small puncture mark near his wrist, like an injection site. "Daniel, what did you do?" He exhaled, voice breaking. "They said it was for the greater good, that the riot would prove the system works. I didn't know people would die." Before Harper could react, the loudspeaker cracked alive with static, and then a voice, calm, familiar. "Lieutenant Harper, I told you you've been asking the wrong questions." Her eyes darted to the intercom. "Monroe!" "You think you can stop this?" Pelican Bay was just the prototype. The real test begins outside these walls. The monitors flashed. Every camera in the prison came online, each one showing live feeds of inmates standing silently in their cells, eyes forward, motionless. Their faces blank, unblinking. Cortez backed away. "They're not moving." "They're not supposed to." Welcome to the future of control. Harper grabbed the emergency kill switch and slammed it down. The lights went out again, but the screen stayed on, powered by something deeper, something she couldn't reach. A low hum filled the air. Then, one by one, the cell doors began sliding open. Harper drew her sidearm, shouting, "Control override! Manual lock! Now!" But no one answered. Cortez was gone. Only his badge remained on the floor, blood pooling beneath it. She turned toward the main hallway and saw him. Elias Ghost Monroe, standing under the red emergency light, calm, collected, a faint smile on his face. "You think you're saving them, but you're just resetting the cycle." He stepped closer. "The riot wasn't my message, Lieutenant. It was theirs. You just refused to listen." Before she could fire, he disappeared into the dark. The lights snapped back on, the alarm silenced. The yard outside was empty again. Every inmate back in their cell, motionless, as if nothing had happened. By the time the response team arrived, there was no trace of Monroe. No breach, no damage, no proof. Just a single phrase left on the command screen. The ghost was never here. Weeks later, Harper filed her final report. Most of it was redacted before it left her desk. Cortez was listed as missing in action. The incident, officially, never occurred. But sometimes, when she walked past the old control wing, she swore she could still hear it, the faint hum of the monitors powering on by themselves. And once, just once, she caught a glimpse of the same red symbol glowing on the wall again. An eye inside a circle. She turned off the lights and walked away, whispering under her breath, maybe the ghost never left. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe, because next time we go even deeper inside the walls that were never meant to open.